My name is Martha Johnson, and the day my whole life broke apart started with one small sound, the click of the front door closing behind him. Not a slam. Not a shout. Just a soft click. That was when I knew something was very wrong. I stood in the small living room, holding a cup of cold tea that had gone untouched for hours. My hands were shaking. My heart was beating so loud it felt like it would jump out of my chest. I looked around the house I had lived in for over 20 years. The couch was still there, but the pictures on the wall were gone. The TV stand was empty. Even the rug my mother gave me before she died was missing. And the boy I raised like my own son was gone. He didn't just leave. He took everything I had. Before I go any further, let me say this. If you love emotional and powerful stories like this, please take a moment to subscribe to this channel, like this video, and turn on your notification bell so you don't miss the next part. And tell me in the comments, where are you watching from today? I want to know who is here with me as I tell this story. Because what that boy did to me still hurts to say out loud. I slowly walked to the bedroom. My feet felt heavy, like the floor was pulling me down. When I opened the door, my knees almost gave out. The closet was empty. My clothes were gone. My jewelry box was gone. The envelope where I kept my house papers, gone. I ran to the drawer by my bed. I pulled it open with shaking hands. Empty. That was when I whispered, "No, no, no, please no." I rushed to the kitchen. The drawer where I kept my savings, the money I worked for, saved little by little, was wide open. Nothing inside. That was the moment I understood the truth. The boy I raised like my own child had taken everything I had, and walked away without looking back. I slid down to the floor and cried. Not loud. Just quiet tears. The kind that come from deep pain. The kind that break your heart slowly. But this story did not start that day. It started many years ago, when that boy first came into my life. Let me take you back. I was 42 years old when I met him. I had no children of my own. Life had not been kind to me, but I worked hard. I cleaned houses. I cooked for people. I saved every dollar I could. I lived in a small but warm home, and I was proud of it. One rainy afternoon, I heard a knock on my door. When I opened it, I saw a skinny boy standing there. He looked about 10 years old. His clothes were torn. His shoes were too small. His eyes looked tired, like he had seen too much for a child. Behind him stood my cousin, Linda. "This is David," she said. "I need your help." She told me his mother had passed away. His father was nowhere to be found. She said she couldn't take care of him anymore. The boy stood there silently. He didn't cry. He didn't speak. He just looked at the floor. I bent down and asked softly, "Are you hungry?" He nodded. That was all it took. I brought him inside. I gave him food. I gave him clean clothes. I gave him a bed. And without even planning it, I gave him my heart. From that day on, David became my world. I took him to school. I helped him with homework. I stayed up late when he was sick. I went to every school meeting, every parent day. When people asked, "Is he your son?" I would smile and say, "Yes, he is." I didn't have much, but everything I had, I shared with him. Years passed. David grew tall. He grew smart. He grew confident. And I was proud. So proud. When he finished high school, I worked extra hours so he could go to college. I cleaned more houses. I skipped meals. I told myself, it's worth it. And I believed, deep in my heart, that one day he would look at me and say, "Thank you, Mom." But something started to change. David stopped calling me Mom. He started coming home late. He stopped telling me about his life. When I asked questions, he would say, "You worry too much." When I tried to talk, he would say, "I'm tired." Still, I trusted him. One night, I overheard him on the phone. He didn't know I was listening. Yeah, he said quietly. The house is in her name, but she trusts me. I'll handle it. My heart skipped a beat. Handle what? I wanted to ask him. I wanted to confront him. But I didn't. Because I loved him. Because I believed in him. That was my mistake. A few weeks later, David told me he needed to organize some papers for the house. It's just for safety, he said. In case something happens to you. I laughed nervously. You talk like I'm old, I joked. He smiled. I just want to protect you. So I signed. I didn't read everything. I trusted him. I trusted the boy I raised like my own. And now, as I sat alone on the cold floor of my empty house, I realized that trust had cost me everything. I wiped my tears and slowly stood up. Then I heard something that made my heart stop. A knock. Someone was at my door. I looked toward the entrance, my hands shaking again. Who could it be? And why did I suddenly feel like whatever waited on the other side of that door would change everything? I stood frozen, staring at the door. The knock came again. Slow. Firm. My heart was beating so fast I thought I might faint. I wiped my face with the back of my hand and took a deep breath. For a second, I hoped, foolishly, that it was David. That he had come back to say this was all a mistake. I opened the door. It was not him. A tall man in a dark jacket stood outside. He held a brown folder under his arm. His face was serious, with no smile at all. Good afternoon, he said. Are you Martha Johnson? Yes, I replied softly. That's me. My name is Mr. Harris. I'm here regarding this property. Property. My stomach tightened. He looked past me into the house. His eyes moved over the empty space, the missing furniture, the bare walls. May I come in? He asked. I stepped aside slowly. He walked in and stood in the middle of my living room, then opened the folder. He pulled out papers. Many papers. I'm afraid I have some information you need to hear, he said. I sat down on the edge of the couch, gripping the fabric so hard my fingers hurt. Please, I whispered. Just tell me. He cleared his throat. According to these documents, he said carefully, this house no longer belongs to you. The room started spinning. What? I said. That's not possible. This is my home. I've lived here for over 20 years. He nodded slowly. I understand. But legally, the ownership was transferred. Transferred? To who? I asked, my voice shaking. He looked me straight in the eyes. To David Carter. I felt something break inside my chest. No, I said. No, no, no. That boy would never. I'm sorry, he interrupted gently. The papers are signed. Witnessed. Filed. I jumped up. I didn't know what I was signing. I cried. He told me it was for safety. Mr. Harris sighed. You're not the first person to say that. Tears filled my eyes again. So what happens now? I asked. He hesitated. There is a sale pending, he said. Sale? I screamed. He's selling my house? Yes, he replied. The new owner has already received a deposit. My legs gave out. I sank back onto the couch. That's impossible, I whispered. This house is all I have. Mr. Harris closed the folder. I'm truly sorry. I suggest you seek legal advice. You may have limited time. Limited time. After he left, I sat alone in silence. That night, I didn't sleep. Every sound made me jump. Every memory came back like a knife. David's laughter as a child. His first school award. The way he used to hug me and say, I love you, Mom. How could someone who once held my hand so tightly do this to me? The next morning, I went to see a lawyer. Her office was small. The walls were covered with books. She listened quietly as I told her everything. From the day I took David in, to the papers I signed without reading. When I finished, she leaned back in her chair. "Martha," she said softly, "this will not be easy. Can I get my house back?" I asked. She shook her head slowly. "Based on what you've told me, it may be very difficult." I felt sick. "But," she added, "there may be another way." I leaned forward. "What way?" "We need to understand David's actions," she said, "and where the money went." That night, I decided to confront him. I called his phone. Straight to voicemail. I sent messages. No reply. Then I remembered something. David once told me about a woman he was seeing. A woman with a nice car and expensive clothes. He said her name only once. Angela. I searched for her online. It didn't take long. Her profile picture showed her smiling beside David. His arm was around her waist. They looked happy. Too happy. I sent her a message. "Hello," I wrote. "This is Martha." I raised David. "I need to talk." Minutes passed. Then my phone buzzed. She replied. "I know who you are," she wrote. "David told me everything." "Everything. What did he tell you?" I typed. She responded slowly. "He said you were sick. That you wanted him to take over everything." My hands trembled. "That's a lie," I wrote. "He took my house. My money." There was a long pause. Then her reply came. "You should talk to him. Not me." Before I could answer, she blocked me. That was when fear turned into something else. Anger. I began digging. Bank records. Old emails. Receipts. And then I found it. A transaction. A large amount of money transferred from my account to a new one. An account with David's name. And a note attached. "Final payment." My heart pounded. Payment for what? I stared at the screen, my mind racing. Because if that money was a payment, then David didn't just steal from me. He was involved in something much bigger. And I had a terrible feeling that whatever he had done was about to come back and destroy us both. I did not sleep again. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that word from the bank screen burning in my mind. Final payment. Payment for what? Who had David been dealing with behind my back? And why did he need so much money, my money, to pay them? As the sun slowly came up, I sat at the small kitchen table, staring at the empty chair across from me. That chair used to be David's. He used to sit there every morning, eating cereal, asking me silly questions, complaining about how early school started. Now the chair was empty. And so was my heart. I whispered to myself. "I raised you like my own. How could you do this to me?" I knew one thing for sure. I could not sit and wait anymore. If I wanted answers, I would have to find them myself. So I went back to the bank. The same teller who had helped me the day before looked surprised to see me again. "Mrs. Johnson," she said kindly. "Are you okay?" I shook my head. "No. I need to ask about a transaction." She nodded and asked for my ID. Her fingers moved quickly on the keyboard. Her face changed as she read the screen. "There were several withdrawals," she said. "And a transfer." "Yes," I replied. "The transfer. Where did it go?" She hesitated. "I can tell you the receiving bank. Not much more." "That's fine," I said. "Please." She wrote down the name and slid the paper toward me. It was not a local bank. It was in another state. My heart sank. That meant David had planned this for a long time. On my way home, I stopped by his old high school. I don't even know why. Maybe I was looking for a piece of the boy I once knew. A woman at the front desk recognized me. "Martha," she smiled. "David's mom, right?" "Yes," I said, forcing a smile. "How is he doing?" she asked. I swallowed hard. "He's grown." She laughed. He was such a bright boy. Always charming. Always knew how to get what he wanted. Her words stayed with me. Always knew how to get what he wanted. That afternoon, I went home and opened the small box where I kept old photos and letters. I needed to remember who David used to be. Or maybe, who he always was. I found a letter he wrote me when he was 16. "Thank you for everything," it said. "I promise I will take care of you one day." I broke down crying. Promises. They mean nothing when someone decides you are no longer useful. As night fell, my phone rang. Unknown number. My heart jumped. I answered slowly. "Hello." There was silence. Then a familiar voice. "Martha." It was David. My whole body froze. "David," I whispered. "Where are you?" He sighed like he was tired. "You shouldn't be digging into things," he said. "Digging. You took my house," I said, my voice shaking. "You took my money. You left me with nothing." "I did what I had to do," he replied coldly. "Had to do. I raised you," I cried. "I fed you. I loved you." "I know," he said quickly. "And I'm grateful. But you wouldn't understand." "Understand what?" I shouted. There was a pause. Then he said something that made my blood run cold. "They were not patient anymore." "They?" I asked. "I can't explain," he said. "Just stop asking questions. For your own good." "For my own good?" I laughed bitterly. "You ruined my life." Another pause. "I'm sorry," he said. But his voice sounded empty. Then the line went dead. I dropped the phone. They were not patient anymore. Those words echoed in my head. Who were they? The next day, I noticed something strange. A car parked across the street. It was dark-colored. The windows were tinted. It stayed there all morning. When I stepped outside, it drove away slowly. Fear crawled up my spine. That evening, there was a note under my door. No name. No return address. Just 5 words written in thick black ink. "Stop looking for him." My hands trembled so badly I almost dropped it. That was when I knew. David was not just a liar. He was in trouble. And now, so was I. I packed a small bag that night. Just in case. I hid my remaining documents in my coat lining. I slept with the lights on. But nothing could prepare me for what happened the next morning. There was a loud knock on the door. Not gentle. Not polite. Loud. Angry. I looked through the peephole. 2 men stood outside. One of them was holding a badge. The other was holding something worse. A photo. Of me. My heart stopped. And as I reached for the door handle, I realized the truth. David didn't just take everything I had. He left me behind to face the consequences. My hand hovered over the door handle. For a long moment, I could not move. Through the peephole, I could still see the 2 men standing outside. One of them had a badge clipped to his jacket. The other held a photo. My photo. It looked like it had been taken without me knowing. I was walking out of a grocery store, my purse on my shoulder, my head turned slightly to the side. My legs felt weak. I whispered to myself. "Stay calm, Martha. Stay calm." I opened the door slowly. "Yes?" I asked. The man with the badge spoke first. "Mrs. Martha Johnson?" "That's me. My name is Detective Wilson," he said. "This is my partner." The second man nodded but did not smile. "We need to ask you a few questions," the detective continued. "May we come in?" I stepped aside, my heart pounding. They walked into my living room and looked around. Their eyes moved over the empty space, the bare walls, the half-packed bags. "Looks like someone moved out," Detective Wilson said. "Yes," I replied quietly. "My son." The word son felt heavy in my mouth. They sat down across from me. The detective opened a small notebook. "Mrs. Johnson," he said, We're investigating a financial case involving identity misuse and property transfer. My stomach tightened. We have reason to believe your name was used in several transactions. I didn't do anything wrong, I said quickly. I didn't even know what was happening. We believe you, he said calmly. But we need to understand how your name was used. I told them everything. From the day David came into my life. From the papers I signed. From the money that disappeared. From the phone call where he warned me to stop asking questions. When I finished, the room was quiet. The detective closed his notebook slowly. Mrs. Johnson, he said, your son may be involved with people who are under federal investigation. Federal. The word felt too big. Too serious. What kind of people? I asked. People who use others to move money, he replied. People who look for someone they can control. Tears filled my eyes. He was just a boy, I whispered. He was just a child when I took him in. Sometimes, the detective said gently, people learn how to survive in ways that hurt others. The second man finally spoke. Have you heard from him recently? Yes, I said. Last night. Their eyes sharpened. What did he say? I told them about the call. About the warning. About the word they. Detective Wilson nodded slowly. That explains the note. The note? I asked. He pulled out a clear plastic bag. Inside it was a photo. The same note I found under my door. Stop looking for him. My hands shook. Mrs. Johnson, he said, these people don't like attention. So what do? I asked. He leaned forward. You do nothing alone. And you tell us if he contacts you again. After they left, I locked every door and window. I sat in the dark, holding my phone, afraid it might ring. And afraid it might not. Hours passed. Then my phone buzzed. A text message. From David. I didn't want this for you. I stared at the screen. My fingers trembled as I typed back. Where are you? 3 dots appeared. Then disappeared. Minutes passed. Then another message. You need to leave the house. Tonight. My heart raced. Why? I typed. The reply came fast. Because they know where you are. I didn't wait. I grabbed my bag and walked out the back door. I didn't turn on the lights. I didn't look back. I went to the one place I felt safe. The church. The old stone building had been there longer than me. Longer than my pain. I sat in the last pew and prayed, not for myself, but for answers. That was when I heard footsteps. I turned around. A woman stood there. She was well dressed. Calm. Her face looked familiar. Then I realized. Angela. David's girlfriend. She walked toward me slowly and sat beside me. I knew I would find you here, she said softly. My heart thudded. What do you want? I asked. She sighed. I want to tell you the truth. I looked at her, my hands clenched tightly. She leaned closer and whispered something that made my blood run cold. David didn't start this on his own. I stared at her. What do you mean? I asked. Her eyes filled with fear. He was chosen, she said. And once you're chosen, there is no walking away. Before I could ask another question, the church doors opened. Someone had come in. Angela stood up quickly. I shouldn't have come, she said. But you deserve to know. Know what? I demanded. She looked at me one last time. That the money he took from you wasn't for him. Then she walked away, leaving me alone in the pew. And suddenly, everything I believed about David began to fall apart. I sat there long after Angela walked away. The church felt colder than before. The air was heavy, thick with fear and questions I did not yet have answers to. My hands were folded tightly in my lap, but they would not stop shaking. The money he took from you wasn't for him. Those words repeated in my head again and again. If the money was not for David, then who was it for? And why did they need my house, my savings, my name? I slowly stood up and walked to the altar. I lit a small candle and whispered a prayer. I was not asking for miracles anymore. I was asking for strength. Because whatever this was, it was bigger than betrayal. I left the church just before dawn. The streets were quiet. Too quiet. I walked quickly, keeping my head down, my bag tight against my side. Every sound made me jump. Every passing car made my heart race. When I reached my house, my stomach dropped. The front door was open. I stood across the street, frozen. I was sure I had locked it. I was sure. Someone had been inside. I did not go in right away. I called Detective Wilson with shaking fingers. "I think someone broke into my house," I whispered. "Stay where you are," he said firmly. "Do not enter." I waited. Minutes felt like hours. When the police arrived, they searched the house carefully. Nothing was taken, because there was nothing left to take. But something new was there. On the kitchen table. A single envelope. No stamp. No address. Just my name. Inside was a piece of paper and a small key. The paper had only one sentence written on it. "You raised him. Now you pay for him." My legs went weak. Detective Wilson's face turned serious. "This is no longer just about fraud," he said quietly. "This is pressure. A message." "A message for what?" I asked. He looked at me carefully. "To make David come back." That was when it hit me. They were using me. I was not just a victim. I was bait. Later that day, Detective Wilson took me to a safe place. A small apartment owned by the city. It was clean, but empty. Temporary. "This is for your protection," he said. "No one knows you're here." I nodded, but my heart was restless. That night, I could not stop thinking about David as a child. About how he used to hide behind me when he was scared. About how he used to cry quietly in his sleep. Had he always been running from something? Or had he become something else along the way? My phone buzzed. Another message from David. "I heard they contacted you." My chest tightened. "Yes," I replied. "Why are they doing this?" The reply took longer this time. Then it came. "Because I broke the rules." I stared at the screen. "What rules?" I typed. 3 dots appeared. Disappeared. Appeared again. Finally. I was supposed to disappear quietly. Not leave loose ends. Loose ends. Was that what I was to him now? "You are my mother," I wrote. "I am not a loose end." The reply came almost instantly. "That's the problem." Tears blurred my vision. "David, listen to me," I typed. "Whatever this is, we can fix it. Together." There was a long pause. Then a message that made my heart stop. "You don't understand. They own everything now. Even me." My hands trembled. "Who are they?" This time, he didn't answer with words. He sent a photo. It was of him. Sitting in a dark room. A man stood behind him, one hand resting on David's shoulder. The man's face was half hidden, but his smile was clear. Cold. Calm. Dangerous. Another message followed. "If I don't finish this, they'll finish you." I felt sick. Finish what? I typed. Seconds passed. Then one last message. "They want you to sign one more thing." My breath caught. What thing? The reply came slowly, deliberately. A statement saying everything I did was your idea. I dropped the phone. My heart was pounding so hard it hurt. If I refused, I knew what would happen. If I agreed, I would lose the last thing I had left. My name. My truth. My life as I knew it. And just then, there was a knock at the door of the apartment. Soft. Careful. I wasn't expecting anyone. I looked through the peephole. A man stood outside. The same man from the photo. Smiling. My breath stopped. Through the peephole, I could see him clearly now. The man from the photo. The same calm smile. The same cold eyes. The same feeling of danger that crawled up my spine. He stood outside the apartment door like he belonged there. Like he had all the time in the world. I stepped back slowly, pressing my hand against my chest to quiet my racing heart. They said no one knew I was here. So how did he find me? The knock came again. Soft. Patient. "Martha," a man's voice said gently. "We just want to talk." My legs felt weak. I looked around the small apartment, searching for something, anything, to protect myself. There was nowhere to run. No back door. No place to hide. I remembered Detective Wilson's words. "You do nothing alone." With shaking hands, I grabbed my phone and called him. It rang once. Twice. Before he answered, the man spoke again. "You don't need to be afraid," he said. "We're not here to hurt you." That was when Detective Wilson picked up. "Wilson," he said. "He's here," I whispered. "The man from the photo. He found me." "Do not open the door," he said sharply. "We're on our way." I ended the call and backed away from the door. The man outside chuckled softly. "You see," he said through the door, "this is why David worries about you. You make things complicated." I swallowed hard. "What do you want?" I called out, my voice trembling. There was a pause. Then he answered calmly, like we were discussing the weather. "We want closure." "Closure?" I repeated. "Yes," he said. "David made a mess. He involved emotions where there should have been none." Anger flared inside me. "You used him," I snapped. "You turned him into this." The man laughed quietly. "No," he replied. "We gave him purpose. Direction. He chose the rest." My hands clenched into fists. "You stole my life," I said. "My home. My savings. Sacrifices," he corrected. "For family." Family. The word made me sick. "You raised him," the man continued. "You shaped him. So it's only fair you help finish what he started." "I won't sign anything," I said firmly. "I won't lie for him." There was silence on the other side of the door. Then his voice dropped, still calm, but colder. "Martha," he said, "you misunderstand. This is not a request." Suddenly, there was a loud knock. Hard this time. My heart leapt. "You can make this easy," he said. "Or very painful." Tears ran down my face. "I loved that boy," I whispered. "I still love him." "That's why you'll help us," the man replied smoothly. Before I could answer, sirens sounded in the distance. The man sighed. "Looks like your friends are early," he said. Footsteps moved away from the door. I slid down the wall, shaking. Minutes later, Detective Wilson burst in with 2 officers. "Are you hurt?" he asked. I shook my head. "He was here," I said. "He talked to me. He knows everything." Wilson's jaw tightened. "That means time is running out," he said. "Running out for what?" I asked. "For David," he replied. "And for you." Later that night, I received another message. From David. "Did he come to you?" My fingers trembled as I typed. "Yes. They want me to take the blame." The reply came slowly. "I was afraid of that." "David," I typed. "Tell me the truth. Everything." There was a long pause. Then he sent a voice message. His voice sounded tired. Broken. "They said if I helped them move money, no one would get hurt. They said it was temporary. Then they said I owed more. Then they said you were leverage." I covered my mouth, choking back a sob. "I never wanted them to touch you," he continued. "But I was already trapped." "Where are you?" I typed. Another pause. Then, If I tell you, they'll know I talked. They already know, I replied. They came for me. Seconds passed. Then the message that made my blood run cold. Then it's worse than I thought. My phone buzzed again. Another message. Not from David. Unknown number. You have 48 hours. That was it. No explanation. No mercy. I stared at the screen, my heart pounding. Because now I understood. This was no longer about money. This was about choosing who would be destroyed. And who would be spared. 48 hours. Those two words sat heavy in my chest, like a stone I could not breathe around. I stared at my phone long after the screen went dark. My hands were numb. My mind would not slow down. Every thought crashed into the next. David as a child, David as a man, the empty house, the man's smile, the words you raised him. Now you pay for him. I was shaking when Detective Wilson returned. They gave you a deadline, didn't they? He asked quietly. I nodded. 48 hours, I whispered. He rubbed his forehead and sat across from me. For the first time since I met him, he looked tired. That means they're panicking, he said. And when people like that panic, they make mistakes. But they still have David, I said. And they can still hurt me. Yes, he replied. Which is why we need to move carefully. Carefully. My voice broke. They want me to destroy my own name. They want me to say everything was my idea. Wilson leaned forward. And if you don't? I swallowed hard. They'll kill him, I said. Or me. Or both. Silence filled the room. Then Wilson said something I did not expect. We may be able to turn this around. I looked up at him. How? By letting them think they're winning. My heart pounded. What does that mean? It means, he said slowly, you agree to meet them. Fear rushed through me. No, I said quickly. I can't. You saw him. You know what he's capable of. I do, Wilson replied. Which is why you won't be alone. And why every word, every move, will be controlled. I shook my head. They'll see through it. Not if you believe what you're saying, he answered. I laughed weakly. Believe it. You want me to believe I betrayed my own son? No, he said firmly. I want you to believe you are protecting him. That night, I didn't sleep at all. I lay on the narrow bed in the apartment, staring at the ceiling. Every memory came back in pieces. David learning to ride a bike. David crying when he had nightmares. David standing tall on graduation day. I whispered into the darkness. I tried to save you. Just before morning, my phone buzzed again. David. They told me you'll meet them. My heart jumped. How do you know? I typed. They told me, he replied. They said if you cooperate, this will end. Do you believe them? I asked. There was a long pause. Then. I don't know what to believe anymore. My chest tightened. David, I typed, listen to me. I need you to trust me. Just this once. Seconds passed. Then. I've trusted the wrong people before. Tears filled my eyes. I know, I replied. But I am not one of them. Another pause. Then a message that felt like a knife. If something happens to you, I'll never forgive myself. I closed my eyes and let the tears fall. Later that day, Detective Wilson returned with a plan. The meeting would happen in a public place. Cameras nearby. Officers hidden. Everything recorded. They think they control the story, he said. They don't know we're listening. But what about David? I asked. Where is he? Wilson hesitated. We believe he's being moved, he said. That's another reason they want this done quickly. My stomach dropped. Moved where? We don't know yet. That afternoon, I received the message with the location. Tonight. 8 p.m. Come alone. The address was a small office building near the edge of the city. When evening came, I dressed slowly. My hands shook as I buttoned my coat. I looked at myself in the mirror. I barely recognized the woman staring back. She looked older, smaller, but there was something else in her eyes. Resolve. At 7:45 p.m., I walked toward the building. The streetlights flickered. Cars passed by without stopping. The world moved on, unaware that my life stood on a thin line. I entered the building. The hallway smelled like dust and old paper. My footsteps echoed as I walked toward the room number they sent. Room 307. The door was slightly open. I pushed it gently. Inside, the man from before sat at a desk. Calm. Smiling. He gestured to the chair across from him. "Martha," he said warmly. "Thank you for coming." "Where is David?" I asked immediately. He smiled wider. "Soon," he said. "First, let's talk about loyalty." He slid a folder across the desk toward me. Inside were papers. Confessions. My name typed neatly at the bottom. "All you have to do," he said softly, "is sign." My hand hovered over the pen. My heart raced. Because in that moment, I realized something terrifying. If I signed, I might save David. But if I didn't, I might never see him again. And just then, my phone vibrated in my pocket. One new message. From David. They're lying. I looked up sharply. The man noticed. His smile disappeared. "Do we have a problem?" he asked coldly. My heart thundered in my chest. Because I knew, whatever I did next would change everything. My fingers tightened around the phone inside my pocket. They're lying. Those 3 words burned through me like fire. I slowly lifted my eyes to the man sitting across from me. His smile was gone now. In its place was something sharp, watchful, dangerous. "Who was that?" he asked. "No one," I replied, forcing my voice to stay calm. He studied my face for a long moment, as if trying to peel my thoughts apart. "Let's not waste time," he said finally. "You understand what's at stake." I looked down at the papers again. My name. My signature line. A confession that would turn me into a criminal. And erase David's guilt. "You said this would end if I signed," I said quietly. "It will," he replied. "For you." I looked up. "And David?" He leaned back in his chair. "That depends on how cooperative you are." My heart clenched. "You're using him," I said. "Just like you used me." He smiled thinly. "Everyone is useful to someone, Martha." I felt a wave of anger rise inside me, stronger than fear. "You picked the wrong woman," I said. His eyes narrowed. "Oh," he replied. "And why is that?" "Because I raised that boy," I said firmly. "And I know when he's afraid, and when he's telling the truth." The man laughed softly. "You raised him to be loyal," he said. "That's why this works." I slowly picked up the pen. My hand hovered over the paper. The man leaned forward, watching closely. "Good," he said. "You're doing the right thing." I took a deep breath. Then I asked, "Before I sign, I want to see him." His expression changed instantly. "That's not part of the deal." "Then there is no deal," I replied, placing the pen down. Silence filled the room. For a long moment, I thought he might hurt me right there. Then he smiled again, but this time, it didn't reach his eyes. "You're brave," he said. "Or foolish." He pulled out his phone and typed something. A minute later, the door behind me opened. I turned around. And there he was. David. My heart shattered and healed all at once. He looked thinner. Pale. His eyes were tired, but when he saw me, they filled with tears. "Mom," he whispered. I stood up so fast the chair fell backward. "David," I cried. He took a step toward me, but the man raised a hand, stopping him. Careful, the man said calmly. This is still business. David looked at him, then back at me. Don't sign, David said urgently. Please. Whatever they told you, it's a lie. Enough, the man snapped. David ignored him. They already got what they wanted, David said quickly. The money was never the end. My heart pounded. What do you mean? I asked. David swallowed hard. They needed a name, he said. A clean one. Someone with no record. Someone older. Someone no one would question. My chest tightened. Me, I whispered. David nodded, tears falling now. They were going to use you even if you signed, he said. They just wanted you to believe you had a choice. The man stood up slowly. That's enough, he said coldly. He grabbed David's arm. I stepped forward instinctively. Don't touch him, I said. The man laughed. You still don't understand, he said. You're in no position to make demands. Suddenly, my phone buzzed again. This time, I didn't hide it. I pulled it out. Detective Wilson. The man's eyes widened just slightly. You shouldn't answer that, he warned. I looked straight at him and pressed speaker. Now, Wilson's voice said calmly, would be a good time to let the young man go. For the first time, the man looked shaken. Footsteps echoed in the hallway outside. Many footsteps. Sirens wailed in the distance. David stared at me in disbelief. What's happening? He whispered. I reached for his hand. I told you to trust me, I said softly. The man backed away slowly. This isn't over, he hissed. The door burst open. Police flooded the room. Hands where we can see them, someone shouted. The man raised his hands slowly, his calm finally gone. David collapsed into my arms. I'm sorry, he sobbed. I'm so sorry. I held him tightly. I know, I whispered. I know. But even as the officers took the man away, Detective Wilson approached me with a serious look. Martha, he said quietly, this is only part of it. My heart sank. What do you mean? I asked. He glanced at David. The people behind him, Wilson said, are still out there. And just then, David looked up at me with fear in his eyes. They won't stop, he said. And I knew. The danger was far from over. The police station was bright and cold. Too bright. Too quiet. I sat in a hard chair beside David, my arm wrapped tightly around him like I used to when he was a child. He leaned into me, his body shaking every now and then. For the first time in years, he looked small again. Detective Wilson stood across the room, speaking in low voices with other officers. I could hear words drifting over. Network. Multiple states. Paper trail. It all sounded heavy. Dangerous. A female officer brought us paper cups of water. I took one, but my hands were still shaking too much to drink. Mom, David whispered, his voice barely louder than breath. I really thought they would kill you. I closed my eyes for a moment. I was afraid too, I said softly. But I wasn't going to let them use me against you. He looked down, tears spilling onto his hands. I never meant for this to happen, he said. I just wanted a way out. A way out that cost everything, I replied gently. Including your soul. He nodded. They found me when I was in college, he said quietly. They said I was smart. That I could help them move money in ways no one would notice. I tightened my grip on his hand. They said it was temporary, he continued. That I'd make enough to start fresh. But every time I tried to stop, they reminded me of you. My heart broke all over again. They watched you, he said. They knew your routines. Your house. Your savings. So you used me, I said softly. He flinched. I thought if I put everything in my name, they'd leave you alone, he said desperately. I thought if I took it all, They wouldn't come back. I shook my head slowly. You didn't protect me, I said. You handed me to them. He buried his face in his hands. I know, he cried. I know. Detective Wilson approached us. We're processing the man we arrested, he said. He's cooperating more than we expected. That sounds like good news, I said. Wilson hesitated. It is. And it isn't. My chest tightened. What aren't you telling me? He's a middleman, Wilson explained. One piece of a much larger operation. David looked up sharply. They'll replace him, he said. They always do. Wilson nodded. That's why we need David's full cooperation, he said. Everything he knows. Every name. Every account. David swallowed hard. If I talk, he said, they'll come after her. Wilson met his eyes. They already did, he said. That's why we're moving fast. Later that night, they took David to a protected holding area. For his safety, they said. I was placed in a small room by myself. A kind officer gave me a blanket and told me to rest. But how could I? I stared at the wall, thinking about my house, my life, all the years of saving, all the love I poured into a boy who grew up afraid and dangerous at the same time. Hours passed. Then Detective Wilson returned. We have a problem, he said quietly. My heart dropped. What now? They're moving money, he said. Right now. Who is they? I asked. The ones above the man we arrested, he replied. They're cleaning accounts. Destroying evidence. David's words echoed in my mind. They won't stop. What can I do? I asked. Wilson hesitated, then spoke carefully. There's one thing they didn't plan for, he said. What's that? You. I frowned. What do you mean? They still believe you're broken, he said. Scared. Willing to sign anything to save your son. I felt my stomach twist. They think they can still control you, he continued. Which means, they might reach out again. And you want me to answer? I said slowly. Wilson nodded. They trust you more than anyone else involved, he said. Because you're not greedy. You're emotional. I let out a shaky laugh. So my pain makes me useful. Yes, he said honestly. And that may be how we finish this. Just then, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. Wilson's eyes locked onto mine. Answer it, he said quietly. But let us listen. I put the phone on speaker. Hello, I said, my voice shaking just enough to sound real. A familiar voice came through. Calm. Smooth. You disappointed us, Martha. My blood ran cold. I tried, I said softly. They stopped me. Silence. Then the voice spoke again. You still owe us. My heart pounded. What do you want? I asked. There was a pause. Finish what you started, the voice said. Or your son finishes it. In prison. I felt my knees weaken. What do I have to do? I whispered. The voice lowered. Meet us. One last time. Wilson met my eyes and gave a slow nod. Where? I asked. The answer came, and made my breath catch. At the house. My house. The line went dead. I looked at Wilson, fear and determination mixing in my chest. They want me to go back, I said. Wilson nodded. And this time, he replied, we'll be ready. I closed my eyes. Because I knew this meeting would decide everything. Not just my future. Not just David's. But whether the people who took everything from me would finally be exposed. The house looked smaller than I remembered. As the police car slowed down at the corner, I stared at the place that once held my whole life. The porch light was on. The windows were dark. From the outside, it looked quiet. Normal. But I knew better. This house had been taken from me once. Tonight, it would decide everything. Detective Wilson sat in the front seat, speaking quietly into his radio. Officers were already in position. Hidden cars, unmarked vans, cameras placed where no one would notice. "You don't have to do this," he said, turning slightly toward me. "Yes," I replied calmly. "I do." Because this time I was not afraid. I stepped out of the car and walked toward the front door. Every step brought back memories. David running down the hallway, laughter in the kitchen, quiet nights when I felt safe. I knocked. The door opened almost immediately. The man inside was not the same one who had smiled at me before. This one was older, sharper. His eyes held no warmth at all. "Martha," he said, stepping aside. "Come in." I entered the house I no longer owned. Two other men stood in the living room. One leaned against the wall. The other sat in my old chair like he belonged there. "You caused a lot of trouble," the older man said. "I didn't mean to," I replied softly. "I just wanted to protect my son." He nodded slowly. "That's what makes you useful," he said. "Sit." I sat. He slid a folder across the table. "No more games," he said. "You sign. We clean this up. Your son goes to prison, but alive. You keep your mouth shut. You get a quiet life somewhere else." "And if I don't?" I asked. He smiled thinly. "Then you lose everything again." I looked around the room. "You already took everything," I said. He shrugged. "There's always more to take." I picked up the pen. My hand shook. Just enough for them to believe it. "I have one question," I said. He nodded. "Why me?" He laughed softly. "Because you loved him," he replied. "And love makes people predictable." I nodded slowly. Then I signed. The man reached for the papers. That was when I spoke. "You forgot one thing." He paused. "What's that?" "I'm not predictable anymore." At that exact moment, the lights turned on. Bright. Blinding. "Police. Don't move." The front door burst open. Officers flooded the house from every direction. Guns raised. Voices loud. Commanding. The men froze. The older man's face twisted with rage. "You lied," he snarled at me. I stood up slowly. "No," I said. "I learned." They were handcuffed within seconds. As officers searched the house, Detective Wilson walked in, calm and steady. "It's over," he said to me quietly. I felt my knees weaken. "Is David safe?" I asked. Wilson nodded. "He is. Because of you." Tears finally fell, not from fear, but from release. Weeks later, I stood in a courtroom. The truth came out. Everything. The money laundering. The fake transfers. The threats. The lies. The men were sentenced. Long sentences. David faced consequences too, but because he told the truth, because he cooperated fully, because he finally chose honesty, his sentence was reduced. The judge looked at me and said something I will never forget. "Your courage saved more than just your son." I got my house back. Not because I begged, but because the truth demanded it. The first night I slept there again, the house felt quiet, but not empty. David stood in the doorway of the living room. "I don't deserve you," he said. I looked at him carefully. "No," I replied. "But I didn't raise you so you could stay broken." He nodded, tears in his eyes. "I'll spend the rest of my life making it right," he said. I placed my hand on his shoulder. "Then start by telling the truth," I said. "Every day." And he did. As for me, I learned something important. Love should never cost you your life, your dignity, or your truth. I raised that boy like my own. And yes, when he left, he took everything I had. But in the end, I took it all back. If this story touched your heart, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss another powerful story like this. Tell me in the comments. Have you ever trusted someone who betrayed you? What would you have done in my place? And most importantly, share this story with someone who needs to hear it. Because sometimes, the strongest people are the ones who survive betrayal and still choose truth.